All right. Topic. My poor big brain. All my brain can think about right now.
You said small brain earlier, and now you said you poor big brain.
And yeah, because it's my spiritual brain. My small brain is my human brain. My big brain, my spiritual brain. My big brain is like just seeing portals swirling everywhere.
Ooh, that's exciting. What? Tell me about one of your portals.
I feel like I'm going to end up doing an entire series on them in my Safi Lou Woo podcast at some point.
Yeah.
Which we have a theme song for now.
Yeah. And I think the thing is we could always, that would be a cool way for you to give an intro of what you'll be talking about. Like, we can have the topic be, hello, I'm Mike Kenna, and this is my special guest, Safi Lou Woo. Tell me about your podcast series that'll be coming up soon.
Oh, boy.
What's your message? What are your values?
Oh, God. We've been working with somebody on our brand messaging, and now all we can think about is messaging and values in everything we do.
Yep. And that's how it worked with me being in grad school. Like, as soon as we would learn about a certain topic, I would apply it to everything. Like, I took a marriage and family class, and there were different interventions or just how you can look at a family, and I was looking at every family unit like that. And this is the thing. Most people are like, oh, psychotherapists, like, all you're doing is psychoanalyzing me all the time. And I'm like, no, like, when you're in grad school, yes, like, you are absolutely, like, practicing your psychoanalytic skills by, like, witnessing people and watching them and seeing what happens. At least that's what I did. But when you're more in that's your role as your job, like, you can turn it on and off. It's not a thing that you do all the time, but
I have no idea where we're going with this, babe.
I just gave you the prompt. Tell me about your podcast. What's it going to be about? Tell me about one of the portals that you were just seeing.
Oh, boy. So, my podcast, it's going to be like a podcast vlog. I'm probably going to be uploading to YouTube more than anything, but...
Yeah, we're going to probably start also uploading this podcast to YouTube as well.
Except without video.
So yeah.
It'll just be sound.
Yeah, it'll be sound with, like, the title page on there.
Yeah. So this last weekend, I went on a solo sort of trip, and I went out into the woods, and I did a meditation in the woods, and then I went back to my hotel room and ended up having just this massive download of spiritual information about shamanic otherworld portals.
Cool.
And I've been sitting with that. I'm currently doing these red tent ritual activations with the Kairos Academy. Ina and Janet are their names. And that's been bringing some more information through. But right now I'm just going through a lot of spiritual healing. And one of the things that I'm being called to do is not hide my woo-woo side anymore. But to fully embrace it and embrace the power of my own voice. So I figured it would make sense to make the Safi Lou Woo podcast where I just talk about whatever's on my brain, my big brain or my small brain.
Yeah.
And be open to allowing other people to see that authentic side of me instead of just the very polished, very... Well, I wouldn't say very polished. Authentic, but more normal. More down to earth. More...
3D.
Yes, more 3D. Versus the full me, which is very multidimensional and very open to spiritual realities and not limiting my experience to just here. What?
My brain, whenever I hear reality... I always go to that Eminem song. So you're like, spiritual realities, and I'm like, oh, there goes gravity.
Great. But I am a very serious person, and I feel like I don't expose a lot of my serious beliefs to people. Mm-hmm. I've been catching, I'm curious about your thoughts on this too. Like, when I'm working with coaches, mm-hmm. It's so different than working with therapists. Because all of the coaches that I've been working with share so much personal information. And it's often really good. It's often really salient examples of what to do or not to do. Mm-hmm. And so I appreciate the insight. But with a therapist, traditionally, there's not really much self-disclosure or sharing at all. I use disclosure as a therapeutic technique, but it's usually
it's very vague.
Yeah, I've lived through something similar, and I know that it can be really difficult. And have you considered trying this tool? There's a little bit of, I totally understand how this could be so devastating right now. Like, I really feel with you. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't be like, because I went through this relationship and this happened, and there's no detail giving. Mm-hmm. And it's not that I want to bring that into my therapeutic work, because I don't think that's appropriate. But I think that through this podcast,
it is very Brene Brown, because of the fact of, if you've heard any of her like podcasts, her specials, her books, like, I'm starting to read Outlets of the Heart, and that book, like, the very first couple of pages, like, shares a little like snippet of like her life as worker at a restaurant. Mm-hmm. Like, she will talk a lot about her personal experiences in these things, which makes her more accessible, because she is I think she's a doctor. Like, she's a psychology professor who does really intense psychology research, and that can feel very inaccessible to people. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think coaching has become such a great tool for a lot of people, is because there's the stigma with therapists where it's professional to human versus human to human, which coaches try to come across as human, of being like, hi, I'm a coach, but I also want to show you that, like, what I'm teaching you, like, I have gone through similar stuff. But I think the therapeutic world is shifting a little bit to, there's a bunch of therapist TikToks out there that are showing their humanness. Mm-hmm.
And that's where I'm definitely, like, I want to go, not necessarily in the appointment to appointment, but like being in the real world and being seen as an example.
Yeah, I want to be able to model.
I want to be a leader. Yeah. I want to.
But not a leader that's without flaw.
A leader that is leading by example, of walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And there are, unfortunately, a lot of therapists and coaches out there that do that.
And they live in denial.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, is like, as therapists, I think that's the thing that we're both trying to do with this podcast, is to be like, hi, we're both therapists, but holy shit, life is hard, and we're not perfect by any means. And here is us, like, being very meta, talking about our own struggles in the midst of also being very, very aware of all of the different tools that are presented for us and interventions that we have told clients to do. And we know how hard it is, because we struggle to implement them day to day.
Yeah. And I think that what I've learned is to embrace my passion of storytelling, and storytelling, like, part of that can be telling my story of what I've experienced and how I've gotten through it. Mm-hmm. And that's still really hard when you're processing through years and years and years of having your voice repressed.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, of you have several voices. Like, you have the voice that reminisces a little bit on the past and, like, talks about your experiences and how you've worked through those. And that voice sounds different than the present voice / future voice of, I'm experiencing these spiritual revelations in the now, and I want to share them and try to use words to explain just how awesome this experience was. But it's so personal that, like, how do you bring up this experience to people? Because everyone's experience with the divine and spirituality is going to be different. Mm-hmm. And there still is a lot of, like, cynicism around spirituality because of how we've cultified religions.
Oh, man.
And so it's hard to trust people when they are in this state of, this is my spiritual experience and it's amazing and I want to share it with you and I want to bring you into the fold. Mm-hmm. Because so many cult leaders have used faith and personal experience to take advantage of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can be extra hard because it's your truth. And you don't want to come across as this, you're embracing the woo and you don't doubt it. But when other people share their doubt about it based off of what they've witnessed in religion, it can probably be really hard for you to just see that.
Not really.
No?
No, my core spiritual belief is that there's so many paths to enlightenment, to awakening and awareness. And that's what my portal system is all about, is about these sort of shamanic-like experiences that can either be seen as spiritual realities or just as metaphors.
There goes gravity.
Metaphors or symbols for human experiences and what we can learn from them. And I try to make my material accessible to a wide variety of people when it's just general spiritual stuff. And then I have my more specialized stuff. Like, I'm a starseed. I love my starseed stuff. But doing starseed stuff is not my niche. Mm-hmm. And there's already somebody that does starseed stuff better than I'm probably ever going to do it. Mm-hmm. I could probably be an equal if I threw my all into it, but that's not my path. My path is far more multi-passionate and all over the place.
Multi-path in it?
Oh, man. It's been a while since we've gotten a good pun in the show. Here we go.
I don't think that qualified as a good pun, but...
It's a solid pun, though. It's definitely a pun. But yeah, embracing my multi-passionate reality has led to also realizing how many other paths there are for other people. Mm-hmm. So my general spiritual stuff, I like to state, if this is your path to God, cool, make it your own. But if your truth is that God looks differently or that there is no God, that's fine too. You can still play with the symbolism of these things, and so many people benefit from guided meditation and whatnot, and reflection and journaling. Mm-hmm. I want to be able to talk about my personal spiritual experiences, but I don't find it hard when someone else is, I don't get it, or that's not for me, because I'm like, cool, what is for you? Go find that. I'm very supporting other people and embracing their truth. The truth is that there is no one truth other than that we're all united, that we all come from the same place. Mm. If someone else's actual truth looks different than mine, that's fine. I don't consider truth to be what comes from trauma, and a lot of people think that their truth is what comes from trauma.
Can you give us an example of what that means?
Oh, man. This is where I'm like, okay, who listens to this podcast?
You can pull something from what I've considered to be traumatic experiences from my life, even though they're different. And, like, what things have I told you or thought were my truths based off of that we realized were from trauma and weren't actually truth?
So...
Like,
again,
would you say, like, attachment?
Yeah, maybe. My truth, again, is that there's no such thing as separation, that we all come from the same stuff, we all came from the same place, we're all made of the same stuff. There's no separation between us and the stars, because, again, we're all made of the same junk. So... that's the core of my truth.
I was about to be like, that's such a beautiful statement of I'm like part stardust, and you're like, junk.
We all come from the same substances. We're made of stardust and star substance. I'm always fascinated watching this tree when we're podcasting. It waves in the wind and it mesmerizes me.
Oh, okay. I was wondering.
But I just like looking at trees.
Yeah.
Trees are portals. That's anyway, I won't go down that.
If you want to learn about trees and mycelium networks, oh my gosh, watch Fantastic Fungi on it's on Netflix, and I think it's on other channels as well.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Anyway, where was I?
Trauma.
Yes, this example of a trauma story communicating a truth. Okay, I can use a personal example.
Okay.
My prior spiritual community, I was very involved. I was in a subordinate role, though. Like, my opinions weren't really considered. But I really valued the spiritual community because I value spirituality so much, so I wanted to maintain it. So I adopted a belief that I didn't deserve to be in a leadership role because I wasn't. Because this other person had taken over and was calling the shots and was no longer listening to my voice. So that must mean that my voice is not valid. That's not true. But I believed it to be true for a long time based off of my trauma. Same thing with religion. Like, so much of our religious quote-unquote truths come from the patriarchy, come from rewriting the books, come from tweaking the stories, come from demonizing women.
Yep.
So we have this whole, I mean...
Like the whole, like, homosexuality is a sin sort of thing. Is that the truth? But it's through generational trauma that is the truth. That,
like, how is that the truth? Obviously, it is the truth that we can do harm when we do things to people against their will or against their consent, without their consent. That's truly harmful. Mm-hmm. And some people are not in a state where they can consent due to age, health condition, whether they're awake or not, like all of these things.
So this is the thing. So you were saying truth based off of trauma. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about how you used trauma from a religious group. And I would say that my experience being raised in a religious way and having my own experiences with religion and also learning about religious cults, and like it was like from the harm that different religious concepts have on me, my truth at that point, because I was so wrapped up in the concept of a God that could punish me at the blink of an eye sort of thing. And I had traumatized myself over the truth that the whole what would Jesus do? I thought that meant martyr myself to the point of complete and utter burnout. And the whole original sin thing. I thought that meant I was a bad person and I was not worthy of. Thank God Jesus had the decency to consider saving me sort of thing. So those were truths that I had internalized for a long time. And now that I'm stepping into my power of boundaries, recognizing my need, reevaluating and understanding my worth and value, I've placed a lot of concepts and fear around of how religion and spirituality and truth and higher power relate to me being small and not worth anything.
Well, and you're an AFAB. So congratulations. It is your fault that original sin happened because you're an AFAB. There's so much patriarchy that we have to unpack.
Yep.
And that, I think, is going to be a big mission of mine as I step into owning my voice and being more of the spiritual leader, is dismantling all of the absolute bullshit that we've perpetuated for years, that women can't be spiritual leaders, that, women are subservient to men. These people that take the Bible as fact instead of as metaphysic. Or metaphor. And I'm not saying I totally am 100% Jesus is a bro, love him, big brother, cool. Love him. Good guy. But we have had these patriarchal systems take and twist these biblical texts and rewrite them and yada yada. And
place it right next to the Constitution.
But when people look at that as a fact and they see it as 100% historically accurate, or 100%, we have to follow every single word. What version? What version do you follow? There's thousands upon thousands of different versions. It's gone through so many revisions.
And there's so many different rules and laws that if you take it out of context, it's like,
and if we're
breaking all of the laws at this point.
And if you're going to follow, you're going to claim that it's all law, then why are you not following all of it to the letter?
Yeah, you can't pick out of the M&Ms of the Bible trail mix.
And that's what people do. And if people did live 100% according to the current Bible, the world would be an even scarier place. So thank God we're not all on board with that. But at the same time, the people that the current church system keeps down is women.
Yep.
And queer people.
Yep.
And
there's currently a United Methodist schism happening because of that.
Wow.
The previously known as United Methodist, now just Methodist, and there's like the World Methodist Church, which is, I think, the one that's less accepting because it involves countries that are not accepting of.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. So since it was considering, like, they were like, if we accept it here, it has to be accepted across all United Methodist churches, and there was big upheaval around that.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of hurt around all of that.
And at the end of the day, when I think about my core mission is not to sling mud as much as I have parts of me that really want to. Mm-hmm. So when I say my work is going to be in dismantling the patriarchy, it's not so much like my personal work is not going to be in just calling out the patriarchy on everything. I'm calling it out here, but that's not the core of my work. The core of my work is just being uplifting and allowing people to know that their truth is their truth, but that their truth cannot be truth if it tries to tell someone else that their truth is wrong.
And I think, so this is the thing. Me and Connections analogies. When we first were like, with the concept of defund the police, right? Mm-hmm. The concept of defunding the police, everyone mistook to mean we're going to take money away from the police and they already don't make a lot of money. And no, we're going to make the police force not have to be as responsible for like mental health problems, or like there will be more roles that are more specialized in certain ways to handle things.
Right.
That then police don't have to worry about, and then they can have more focused training on what they need to be focused on. So the word defund got thrown out of proportion. Same thing with dismantling the patriarchy. The whole like throwing mud thing, that's not what you're planning on doing in terms of dismantling. We're going to be empowering everyone else that isn't patriarchal, ultimately.
Right. And that there's so many women's groups out there now, and I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited that there are so many communities of women building each other up and supporting each other. Mm-hmm. But those groups often, not universally, but often fail to account for queer identities and the fact that there are men that want to do this work. There are men that want to not have to live the way that they have to live, in fear of showing emotions, in fear of being seen as weak or being emasculated. And
there are a few, very few, but I've heard of men's groups that are specifically to empower each other to
absolutely
have emotions.
Those exist. Those definitely exist. They're rarer than the women's groups are at this point. But that makes sense because men have been socialized to not be communal. They've been socialized to be individual, whereas...
And competitive and territorial.
And so all those things are great, and it doesn't account for queer spaces. There's not a lot of queer networking groups. There's not a lot of queer spiritual groups. They exist, but that's more where I want to not focus on inviting and just having an exclusively queer group, but a group that invites all identities, all marginalizations, and people of privilege that want to up-level our communal consciousness, our collective into a higher state of being. And
I feel like that's what our Discord is starting to turn into.
Yeah.
And we're wanting to have these conversations about people's opinions and experiences around that sort of stuff, around patriarchal values and how that's affected them in their life. And if we have any ideas in terms of how to lift each other up and everything like that. So that's been really cool to see, is people and people sharing like their cool art that like some of the art I have never heard of. And I'm like, holy shit, like, you're so creative. That's amazing that you thought of doing this.
Yeah. I just want us to all celebrate each other and lift each other up and not get sucked into this awful vortex of chaos, collective chaos.
Yep.
That's where we've been. And we had such an opportunity to learn and grow from that in the last 2 years, and we dropped the ball.
Yep, that's how history goes. History does repeat itself. Like, there's opportunities presented before the collective over and over and over again.
So I wanna help us make different choices.
Yeah.
And I think that we're getting there with our mission, and I'm getting there with my mission and my purpose. And it's going to be fluid and flexible, and it's going to change. And just like this conversation, this podcast went 5,000 different places. We probably will too in our evolution, and that's okay. We need to normalize the fact that our perspective is constantly changing, especially as we walk knowingly or unknowingly through these portals of experience, such as pain or bliss or death or birth, these moments in life that everything seems to stop and change. And that's what I really want to honor.
Yeah.
So.
And this just, the concept of change is just I need you to read this, Safriana. I need you to read it. Because Starseed concepts, plus like your concepts of spirituality.
Oh, Parable of the Sower.
Because the main character has figured out through their experiences, they created a spirituality called Earthseed.
Yeah, I've heard of Earthseeds before too.
Yeah.
Like Earthseed is actually a term sometimes used in the Starseed community for primal Earth souls who are trying to up-level the planet. So.
I don't know if it could have been inspired by...
Who knows? Do some digging.
Yeah, but it was... Yeah, every time I hear and listen to a chapter of it, I'm like, I need Safriana to listen.
Let me just squeeze that into my schedule.
Into your busy schedule. We'll go on a road trip and listen to it.
Sounds good. I would love to go on a road trip to the beach again.
Yeah. But yeah, so Safi Luwu is going to be coming out on podcast soon.
TM. I'm trying to figure out a plan first before I jump in, but there is a first. I did just test, I tested the software and I posted a quick video on YouTube. So we do have a Living Luna's YouTube now, and I'll probably just sub-channel Safi Luwu in there.
Make a playlist.
Make a playlist, yeah.
Yeah.
So hope you will heckin' join me.
Heck.
Heck.
Okay, bye.
Bye.